Peace, everybody. It's Mumtahana with Beyond Clouds. So I'm here today, rocking my tea. I'm here today to react to this video that came upon my feed, thank creator, and it's an interview that a YouTuber by the name of Alessi, Allaman, I guess you pronounce his name, that he made interviewing some sort of key people within the Ramapough indigenous nation, the Ramapough Mountain Indians, Inc. And so, as a lot of you already know, that the whole point of this channel, Beyond Clouds, is it is connected to an organization that I started called Beyond Clouds in order to continue my son's work. My son is Murid, not Murid, Murid Nishakmakwak Williams, and he is more popularly known as Two Clouds. He was a border protector, a land defender. He was instrumental in the land back movement, in that he fought in court, in Bergen County Court in New Jersey, which is arguably the most racist county in all of New Jersey. He fought there for the Ramapough people and had dozens upon dozens of acres of stolen land returned to them. And other land has been returned to them because of my son, even posthumously. And he was murdered. He was murdered, and we have proof that the murderers are tribesmates, Ramapough people. And not all of them, of course, just a handful, who, you know, plotted, executed, and continued to keep quiet, conspired to keep quiet what actually happened to my son. And so with all of the work that he did, nearly 3 years later now, no one has spoken a word of Two Clouds. Poof, he no longer exists. He never existed. And so this video is just more of erasure, of that erasure of my son. And so I, like a lot of you, will probably have this argument, which I initially agreed with, that this guy, Alessi Allaman, he's just going in trying to get some interviews so he can get some clicks or whatever the case is. He don't really know what's going on. I was totally on board to agree with that argument until one of my son's comrades saw the video and commented that you need to ask the tribal chief, Dwayne Perry, is the video that she commented under, because there's actually like 3 parts. But she said under there that you need to ask him about the murder of Two Clouds. Ask him about that. And immediately, within minutes, Alessi or somebody on his team deleted that comment. And so all you see in the comment sections are, you know, all these praises and everything. Woo woo, Indian people, they're so cool, you know, all this kind of stuff. Because so many people, you know, really are committed to this fetishized idea that they have about indigenous people, which is that they're not just regular human beings. Indigenous people are regular human beings. We don't look alike. We don't all pray alike. We don't all dress alike. We don't all speak alike. We have a myriad of familial histories. It's not just this woo-woo, powwow, let's go and hang out with the Indians and take pictures and put them on TikTok or whatever the case is so we can look dope and like we're globally rounded or what have you. So I am here to set the record straight and to react to this first video, which is part 1 of his, you know, interview and visit to the mountains there in Mawa. And then I will also do a separate part 2 reacting to another section that I found lots of flaws in, and which once again proved the point that the Ramapough people are hell-bent on silencing my son, Two Clouds, and it's not going down like that.
Yes, I'm Vincent Morgan with the Ramapough Muncie Lenape Community Center. I'm the acting executive director of the center. We have a lot of programs for the people, the children. We work with the elders, the children of...
So I'm going to start right at the beginning of this video. He starts off by talking to Vincent Morgan, who I do not know. It sounds like he just recently came back up there, probably after my son's murder. But he is the executive administrator or something or another of the tribal office right there, which they call their community center now. I don't know him, and I don't mean any disrespect, but in saying that, I just want to point out, and this is not, indicative of the Ramapough themselves. Many people are this way, but it's so crazy to me that he throws out this big, I'm this dude, but he can't answer simple questions. Not even what the symbol of a turtle means. Is that like indigenous 096? But it strikes me that my son Two Clouds would have so much, he would have been spitting so much history with dates, with names, with statutes, with all sorts of things.
I just wanted to bring to light the fact that every single court case that we've had since the prayer came since they came under the name Split Rock Sweetwater started October 2016, we've won everything. If we didn't win them 100%, we won them 90%, 85%. The town hasn't won anything. Them saying that we don't have a right to pray on the land, first of all, is absurd. We weren't able to pray as Native American people until 1978. We need to remember that. We need to remember that it was illegal for us to worship in any way, shape, or form. Then the Native American Freedom of Religious Act was passed in 78, not long ago. My mother was alive then, Now they're saying again that we cannot pray on our land, that the land is not zoned. So let's only speak about the zoning itself. We have had our land zoned for ceremonial and cultural purposes back in January of 2012. Yet they're ignoring that. Actually, last year, I believe it was September 15th of 2017, they rescinded that permit. But during the trial of October of 2017, the judge said that they do not have the authority or the right to rescind the permit without due process, which they did. So that means that this date still stands.
But the other thing is, I wanted you to see the outside of the tribal office. That tribal office is up sort of at the top of this long winding hill road. And while there are residents there, it's very secluded, very quiet. You can kind of get that, I think, that sort of stillness that goes on there. And we know for a fact, we have digital proof, which is verifiable and undeniable, digital proof that that is the last place where my son was the morning that he went silent. He would go there just to rest or freshen up or what have you, and he had just come back the night before from a trip up to Mashpee, Massachusetts, and fighting for the Ramapough people. And that was the last place he was. And so we are alleging that that is actually where he was murdered. It's very quiet, very secluded. No one can hear a thing that happens in there. Nobody on the outside would be able to hear him, would be able to help him. And so it lends to question if indeed that is where, again, we know he was there that morning and he went silent that morning while he waited to get to okay to come and pick up his son for a party that he had been stoked about taking his son to for weeks. You know, we have proof that he was actually there. And so it lends to question that if that is indeed where he was murdered, how did he end up way a couple of miles or so down on the land, which we'll go into more in this video. How did he end up way down there days after he went missing?
We spoke over the phone that getting the rights of Split Rock back, is that something that you're in the process, the community in the process of getting?
Al, you want to jump in real quick, buddy?
We got Al right here.
Yeah, Al is the man.
So in that clip, Alessi goes on to ask Vincent, which of course he can't answer the question, but he goes on to ask him about Split Rock. Split Rock is very much endeared by the Ramapough people. It is said to be a portal, one of 7 portals here on earth, between like this world and the spiritual worlds. And it has been dear and sacred to the Ramapough Lenape people for centuries. Split Rock was actually, he asked Vincent, you know, about like, you know, I heard you guys are trying to get it back or whatever. So it's making me think that this video was most likely recorded last year, maybe in 2023, because they have since received the rights to Split Rock, to that land, and there where Split Rock is. It was actually the New Jersey Land, because I'm trying to get my thoughts right. The New Jersey Land Conservancy actually did a fundraiser and raised $300,000, bought the land, and then donated it to the Ramapough people, gave it back to them. What they won't tell you, if they even know, is that my son Two Clouds was actually working with the New Jersey Land Conservancy. He worked with them as like a consultant. They would contact him to get information and to help them survey the land, because not only were they not familiar with the land in that way as, you know, a land conservancy organization, but my son knew the land better than any of the Ramapoughs did. And so he was the connect. Along with that, you know, my son, he was a cartographer. If you don't know what a cartographer is a map maker. It's what he did. He had been doing it since he was a young boy. He was homeschooled, and I had him get into that. And he liked it. And so with him living on the land there for so many years and scoping out everything, and, you know, he was a historian and so on and so forth, he would make maps of the land. And he, in fact, was instrumental in a project done by Ramapough College, no affiliation with the tribe, but Ramapough College. And I will actually put the link in the description down there. But he actually was instrumental in that whole project. like they could have done it without him. And they recognized the other extremely important thing about that clip is it brings in Owl. Stephen Owl Smith. I will tell you some about him. So as he later on in the video kind of sort of, glazes over, is that he was there on the land, which you will see later on, the land there, Split Rock Sweetwater Prayer Camp. He was there sometimes with my son, and then he actually, I don't know if he was over in California or whatever at the time, and then he came over. He's mentioned that he actually went up to Dakota to help support the DAPL pipeline protest. He and the tribal chief, Dwayne Perry. So, they went up there and whatever, and when they came back is when my son entered the picture. And, Owl makes mention that, Dwayne Perry started that. He did not start that. But I will get back into that later because I really want to touch on Owl. Who is Owl? First and foremost, as I said, he was there sometimes during the protest and the fight for the land that they will be on as we go on in the video. The primary person was my son. Not only was he the head of the camp, but he was the one who was there constantly. Him and a Mohawk elder whose name is Ganaguio. His American name or his English name is Harold Maltz. And I'll talk about him a little bit later too. Owl is a lawyer by trade. From what I understand, he is licensed in New York and California. He is also the one and the same Stephen Smith who signed, I don't know what kind of law work he does with that. I don't even know how he did that. They just thought I wasn't going to do or say anything about it. But he's actually the one who signed the fraudulent letter that Dwayne Perry sent to the medical examiner the day after my son was murdered. I will put that link because it is definitely on my blog. I did a whole write-up about it, chock full of links and, snapshots and things of that nature. Proof. So, yeah, I will sign that fraudulent letter that Dwayne Perry sent to the medical examiner. He lied saying that I gave him permission or that I was on board with him, as if he spoke to me about this, that I was on board with him sending this letter, that he wanted to have the results of the autopsy sent to him, an autopsy which we would not have gotten done were it not for the fact we knew he had been murdered, because he had been complaining that he believed he was going to be murdered. And yes, he did tell us who. And it wasn't just us who he told. So that same Stephen Owl Smith signed that. And again, you can see it yourself. I don't really want to make this video too long, but you can see it yourself on the blog.
That's not to say that there aren't nice people here.
Yeah.
Or that people that don't act in a good way with us. But unfortunately, there's, I'll just call it a virus called racism that seems to be very virulent here.
So what has happened exactly? Why do you say that? Because we're walking around and I'm seeing looks like multi-million-dollar homes, just very affluent area. And is it that they don't like that this setup is right here? Or they don't like that the Ramapough come here and have their powwows? What exactly are you saying there?
Well, some of them don't like the fact that they see us at all.
Really?
Yeah.
And they've said that verbally?
Well, they've done more than say it. They've acted in that manner. And again, not all of the neighbors here. Some of them have, and unfortunately, those seem to be the ones that are making the policy and setting the tone for what's going on. We have reached an agreement with them, and we remain here, and of course they're here.
So tell me what exactly happened, that there was a dispute here and there was a solidarity, and you guys were out here for close to a year, if not a year, and obviously they were getting mad about that. So what happened?
Well, there was a man, an Italian man, actually. He spent a lot of time in Spain, and in 1492 he came around here looking for gold.
This guy sounds familiar.
Yeah, I think his name was Christopher.
So let me say this. It isn't that I believe the entire conversation is supposed to include or surround two clouds. That's not why he's there. He's there asking specific questions, right? Trying to find out some information, investigate. But that's exactly the issue. In this clip, he's asking Owl specifically, what exactly happened? What happened here that these millionaires, these wealthy people around here have issue with you? Is it because of the structure that's over there, which is their prayer circle or their longhouse, they call it sometimes? Is it because like you're just here, like what's going on here? And of course, Owl isn't just answering the questions right on. And also, for the record, Christopher Columbus never came to New Jersey. Christopher Columbus made it to the area which we now call the Bahamas, which is where my people are from. My father is Bahamian American. My grandma, my great-grandparents, and for generations before them are from that area. I most often speak about the Mohawk just because people are more familiar with that term, and they are here on this massive land. But we are also, my family were also Kayan, or I just to make it easier say Taino. But Columbus never made it over here. So that's another big part of the hoax and the lie that we keep out of just not knowing. We keep reiterating this lie. But so far as two clouds, Alessi is asking him, again, specifically, what exactly happened. You cannot in any way talk about what happened there with the Ramapough tribe in regard to the POA, the Polo HOA community right there, without talking about two clouds. It's impossible. You cannot do it.
Here, we got this sign that says Ramapough Split Rock Sweetwater Prayer Camp. So this is your guys' claimed land? Is this state-wise, like you guys own this land, or is this more of a park? Like, what is it actually today?
It has two functions. This is part of our sovereign land that we hold as a community. It doesn't exist in a vacuum, though. We also have this land, what the lawyers would call fee simple, which means outright, private deed. So this is our private property. So this is our sign marking, an entrance to this land right here. Ramapough Split Rock Sweetwater Prayer Camp.
Your friend here that led this solidarity that definitely escalated things the last few years with the neighbors here. What exactly happened?
Well, Chief Perry, after discussions with indigenous allies and others, particularly in the environmental movement, opened up these lands to a vigil.
So here again, you see that Alessi, the interviewer, is asking specifically again about the land. Hey, what's up with this Ramapough Split Rock Sweetwater Prayer Camp thing? Like, is this your land? Again, Owl could have brought and should have brought up two clouds. If you're going to talk about what happened, listen, that land, when two clouds went up there, found his way up to the tribal office in fall of 2016. He went up there because he wanted to become reacclimated with his father's people. His grandmother his grandmother's father, I think, brought them all from down there because it was too racist. It was too much fitna, too much drama going on up there. So he moved them all down to North New Jersey. And they've been there for a few generations in that area. Two Clouds wanted to, again, be reunited with the tribe, learn about his people, and he also wanted to learn the Munsee language. He was a polyglot. He spoke many different languages, and he wanted to, of course, learn the language of his mother tongue. So he found his way up there to the tribal office, and you know, there were Munsee classes that were beginning and everything. Chief Perry brought Two Clouds down to that very piece of land and showed him around and told him that these white people, using his words very carefully and specifically, I'm sure, even though he seems to sometimes want to seem pro-black in some sort of a way when it comes to, you know, the brothers, unless he is trying to discount the work that they have done for him and for the tribe. So anyway, I have another video on that. And in fact, I'll link it in the description bar. But the tribal chief brought Two Clouds down there to that very land and told him that these white people were trying to steal their tribal land, their ancestral land, and that nobody would help him, is what he said. Nobody in the tribe would help him. Nobody, not Owl, not anybody, was trying to help him. My son told him that he would help him. The tribal chief knew that I raised my son and all my children up to be revolutionaries. That's a fact. He knew, I'm sure, from a couple of weeks or whatever it was of knowing too, that he could feel his spirit and knew that he was a warrior. He's not the only one. People took to my son. I don't know where any of them wannabes are now, because not one of them have stepped forward to help me demand justice for him. You know, there are a lot of leeches out here in the world. However, saying that, under Tribal Chief Perry, his watch, they were about to lose that land. Absolutely. The only reason that they have that land now, and the only reason that Alessi and Owl can walk around there willy-nilly talking and interviewing, is solely because of Two Clouds. That's a fact. That's a fact. So that was another lost opportunity for him to mention Two Clouds in regards to his fight and in regards to him bringing something of value to the Ramapough people, because they had nothing. They were, again, about to lose that land, which was gifted to them by the land developer. And it's like the worst part of the land because it floods. So it's not like they could really build on it or do anything on it. But nonetheless, he gave them the land out of being nice, right? So they had that and they were about to lose it. The only other thing that they had is the tribal office property up there, which was in terrible condition. It had black mold on it and everything. Two Clouds lived there for a minute while he was, you know, doing the work, because the tribal chief made him, after 2 years of him working diligently and living on the land in the dead of winter and being shot at and all these sorts of things, he forced Two Clouds off the land, which of course Two Clouds was highly upset about, highly offended, highly hurt. So then he's still doing the work. He went to stay at the tribal office. Black mold all in there. Two Clouds finally left the tribal office because somebody I knew was willing to clean all of that up for free. The only thing that the tribal chief had to do was pay $100 for the chemicals to get rid of it, and he refused. He would not do it. And so Two Clouds, again, was highly offended and felt like the tribal chief had no love for him, had no empathy for him, had no care for him, had no respect for him, and quite frankly, was ungrateful for the work that he was doing. Like $100, that wasn't only gonna like help Two Clouds not have to breathe that in, but all of the community, all of the tribesmates who, you know, will come there from time to time. So that was another missed opportunity by Owl. But also, Alessi asked him again specifically, what about your friend who led the solidarity? Again, huge missed opportunity. He starts talking about Chief Perry. Again, he could have opened it all up all he wanted to. Nothing would have happened, because no shade or disrespect to the Ramapough people, but they are just not built that way. They're not. The men aren't built that way. The women might be feisty sometimes, but they're not out. Nobody was out there with Two Clouds like that. In fact, a lot of them were pissed at him. They were telling him to go back down to the lowlands. You coming up here causing trouble for us and all this kind of stuff. Or they would like call him Hollywood Indian because they were upset that he was getting so much press coverage and things of that nature. It was just ridiculous. Some of the elders were pissed off because, you know, he just come up in there and everything, a newbie, he's young or whatever. But there was already buzz like, oh, he should be the next chief. He should be the next chief because he's actually getting things done. So again, another missed opportunity. Chief Perry and nobody else was down there on that land. Owl will come through sometimes, like other people will come and like stay a weekend or a day or something like that because it was cool, you know? You got this big teepee and there's a fire going in there and there's like benches for everybody to sit down on. So it's like poetry readings going on, singing, all this kind of stuff. People like living this fantasy hippie life that they always wish they could have. But when it got cold, when it got real, when the police were coming all the time, bye-bye. Bye, Two Clouds. We hope you do really well, dude. You know, they already had enough photo ops and videos to put online and stuff. Two Clouds was the one there. And as I said, Ganiguil, the Mohawk elder, Harold Maltz, who incidentally, in his 60s, with a chronic illness, he was made to be the fall guy for something that happened down there on the land where the POA, the HOA, the Polo Club, was trying to get Chief Perry and they were trying to get Owl. They ended up being able to get Ganiguil. Ganiguil was innocent. He did 3.5, almost 4 years in jail as an old man, as someone who has a chronic illness, as someone who, this is during the peak of COVID epidemic. Nobody came through for him. They could have fought for him and they did not. These are the type of people that we're dealing with here. To this day, Ganiguil got out of jail like in May, like a couple of months before Two Clouds was murdered. And Two Clouds is the one who took him in. He took him in to an apartment that, the floor of a house that somebody allowed them to stay in. Chief Perry made it where they got kicked out. Okay? And to this day, Ganiguil is fighting, trying to clear his name. He's out of jail, but he's still fighting, trying to clear his name because he was innocent. But nobody came through for him. Not one Ramapough, not one Ramapough lawyer, because they have lawyers. So this is telling you something about the people who are at the helm of the tribe. I'm not talking about the 5,000 plus members. I'm talking about the people who are at the helm of this tribe, who can do things, who can help in an investigation into the death of Two Clouds, but they refuse. They don't even mention his name when his name should obviously be mentioned and that his work should obviously be invoked. But let me say also, during the time of this recording that they're doing this interview, from what I understand, the word on the street is that Owl and Chief don't get along anymore. But at the time, Owl was Chief's right-hand man. Again, I don't know why he would do this. Maybe Perry convinced him that it was an actual letter, but funny enough, he ain't signed it. But the fact that he even signed a fraudulent letter and sent it to the medical examiner, not the police, incidentally. Again, I'm going to link in the description bar where you can see all this stuff yourself. But not to the police did they take this to. If they're so concerned that, oh, these are some of the reasons why he could be dead. First of all, it seemed like just throwing stuff out there to see if it sticks, to take the, to turn the vision elsewhere, it seems to me, and a whole lot of other people. But this is Chief's dude. So instead of him mentioning the person who was really the cause of all this solidarity and all this movement that was happening for the Ramapough people, he mentions the Chief. The Chief is the figurehead, but he's not the one who did all this. How do we know? Why didn't he do it in all the time that he was there before? None of this happened until Two Clouds came. And literally, when Two Clouds came, they had here and there, if you Google or research them in historical societies or whatever the case may be, you'll see things over the past decades. You'll see things here and there, like, Chief Redbone had been, throughout the 90s, had been fighting for federal recognition. They had gotten state recognition around 1980, 1982, but they actually ended up losing it. And then they got it again, I think, in like 2019, maybe 2017, but 2019. Again, after Two Clouds was there. But, or you might see something about the cancer that a lot of them suffer with because the Ford Motor Company dumped all this paint sludge into their water system decades ago, and people are still dying from the cancer now of their very, very terrible situation. So you might see things here and there, but nothing ever like this. Nothing. Two Clouds is the one reason why they have any assets, why they have millions of dollars in assets right now. Yet, not one person can ever mention his name publicly.
But yeah, so although it was founded with indigenous people, there was important participation of allies. Although the pipeline was out there, those same dynamics were here as well. I mean, we had the Pilgrim pipeline that they were proposing to build through here, which they did not, in part because of what we were doing here.
Yeah.
So what we were doing here also tended to have an outsized impact because we were the original people of New York and Manhattan.
Yeah.
And New Jersey, or what became New York and New Jersey.
Again, a missed opportunity, intentionally or not. He's saying, so also realize I'm cutting this up, but this is like a fluid conversation that they're having that I'm cutting up in order to react to it. And so he's saying, like, we were here for the pipeline. We, as I said before, Owl definitely was there sometimes. And at a point, sort of early on, he sort of became like second, I'll say, to Two Clouds as a spokesperson. So if you look up, if you Google that time with the Ramapough, you'll see that Owl is quoted a lot of the time and stuff like that, along with Two Clouds and Chief Perry. Sometimes he will go to speaking events with Two Clouds and they would both talk. At this time, during the fight for the pipeline, it was him and Two Clouds a lot of the time. And there was also a third for a while, Little Wolf, this guy who was there, another Black Indigenous person. And Two Clouds ended up kicking him out the camp because one of the girls who used to, there was always Like I said, people coming through because it was like cool and everything. And of course, there will be girls involved there. At that time, that time was just like ripe for young revolutionaries. And so there was a lot of fighting going on. Again, the Dapple Pipeline and everything was happening. Stuff of Kier, like there's always stuff going on. But it's not always like, you know, fiery and, you know, vibrant and like this intense energy in the air as it was at that time. And so, you know, a lot of the people who will come through, of course, were female. And so one of the girls made an allegation against Little Wolf, and it was never looked into to see if it was accurate or not. But Two Clouds had to protect the women regardless, so he made him leave. But there was actually 3 of them working together. And again, it wasn't for a very long time, and it wasn't consistent. And they weren't like living on the land with Two Clouds. Like again, like Anidohi was there in the dead of winter, child. I was bringing him medicine, like all kind of stuff, bringing food down there. You know, other people were bringing like clothes and, you know, non-perishable foods and stuff like that. Again, it was just an intense time. But in saying that, Two Clouds, again, was at the helm. It's true. He was at, this is not some doting mother type thing. This is from a historic place of truth. This is not revisionist history. This is truth. Two Clouds, before he realized that Owl was like so much older than him, because Owl looks pretty young in the face. I think he's older than me. I'm in my 50s. I think he's older than me, but when you to look at him, you're like, what are you about, 37? And so Two Clouds, before he realized like, oh, he's like older than me, Two Clouds used to spaz out on Owl because he was just so soft. He was scared to speak up. He was scared to do this and scared to do that. And Two would be pissed off. He's like, why are you acting like a punk right now? Again, we're from North New Jersey. So he was like, why are you acting like a punk? Why are you scared of these white people? Like, he was just like so angry. So it was Two Clouds that was like, whatever, you know, that's my baby. Yes, I raised him well. But so those are things that happen. And again, opportunity, he could have mentioned Two Clouds in the fight and being instrumental with the fight. There would not have been a fight if it was not for Two Clouds. Verifiable facts.
And also, it's proposed to go through one of our largest burying grounds here in Mahwah, New Jersey, in the mountains, on what's known as Stag Hill Road. Has about 1,000 known burial sites within this burial ground, this graveyard. All I want to say is that, according to the appeals court for the Nancy Pope the state of New Jersey says we are an inherently sovereign American Indian tribe. And being that you live in the Ramapough Mountains,
okay,
I think you should be subject to our
going
rules.
on to our resolution 27270 dash.
No, we got a public hearing.
Public hearing, sorry, the open
You're in
space.
our jurisdiction.
Public portion.
Hope it's on record.
Open space recreation, floodplain.
Look at the
protection,
trees.
historic
Sorry, at this point, you disrupt
Trust fund
the meeting.
application.
Maybe all by itself they had a way to explain it, but not all the rest of the facts that were shown out. So how do you feel about that, knowing that they have threatened people? We've heard of that, and the people are so scared they want to remain anonymous. Obviously you don't. You want to speak up on this. Are you scared?
You know, anyone can scare me, but no one can intimidate me. You know, and the fact of the matter is, if something were to happen to me, you know, and my life was taken, or if not just me, anyone, right? That's that's okay. They killed our ancestors in the past, and we're still here. So they can kill us, bury us, we're just going to come back stronger anyway.
Okay, well, this is a prayer circle here with these masks of Masingwe, one of the beings from our creation story.
Okay.
And Chief Perry was the one that had the vision or the dream, brought that forth. And in relation to that vision, this is how this prayer circle emerged, and is really meant to be a place that people can come to for ceremony, for meditation. And Masingwe, the story, and this is actually interesting enough, like I was mentioning earlier, I really kind of came back as an adult.
Yeah.
Two Clouds, young dynamic member.
Two Clouds.
Two Clouds, yeah, that brought to my attention. And the way he told the story was, there was a time before humans were here on the earth where the Creator was in the process of bringing them forth.
Oh my gosh.
That the animals.
Yeah, dead raccoon right there.
Maybe this raccoon might have been one of them.
Holy crap, just sitting right there.
If these humans come by, things might not be too good for us.
Poor fellow. Sorry to interrupt. I just had to mention that.
Well, no, there are a lot around here. I mean, they're, some of the smartest animals out there,
Yeah.
I mean.
All right, so going back to the creation story in Two Clouds was telling you.
Okay, well, Masingwe is one of the beings in creation, so the animals perhaps they foresaw this period of time now where there would be all this destruction and chaos. We're living in the sixth biological mass extinction event.
Is this all verbal history being passed down, like Two Clouds was told by someone verbally, or do you guys have this written down in terms of the creation story as well as your history, or how is that passed?
I'm not sure exactly where he got it from.
Okay.
I got it from him verbally.
Yeah.
So between me and him, it was oral tradition.
Is that common in?
So let me start off with the prayer circle. He says that it was the tribal chief's vision who brought that to fruition. I've looked through my papers. I can't find it, but as soon as I do, best believe I will make it public on the blog. But I've seen with my own eyes in a newspaper clipping from a long time ago, before Perry became chief. Those were already there. It didn't come from his vision. I don't understand what Aula's talking about there. Again, to his point, he said he didn't come back there until he was an adult. Like I said earlier, if my recollection is appropriate, Two Clouds told me that Owl had just come up there like within that 2016 when that whole thing was starting to kick off. And I believe he said from California. But nonetheless, he came back when he was an adult. He don't have a whole lot of information probably. And a lot of the stories that all of them had actually came from Two Clouds. People have lived up there for generations and they knew hardly anything about their culture, about their histories, their lineage, any of that sort of thing, aside from, what they knew about their own, grandma and stuff like that. And so he used to actually teach them. And again, he was one of the handful, I think there were like 5 people who actually spoke the Munsee language fluently. And with his work, he didn't only do like protest work and like things of that nature. He also did a lot of educational things. That's all actually part of his legacy and part of the legacy that I've been keeping going for him. But he used to, a lot of different institutions used him as a consultant. Ramapough College being one, Mawa Museum being another. He was actually slated to start translating Dutch documents that the Mawa Museum has. He was going to translate them. If they were in Dutch or Munsee, but he was going to start translated them into English for them. So he was doing a whole lot of things, you know, the protest work, the land back, the, you know, map making, the teaching, the, you know, tribes people, the teaching outsiders about their plight and their history and such, you know, translating documents. He was really, really doing real deep work that would go on for at least 7 generations, at least, if the people, of course, you know, take advantage of it and pass it on. And so, you know, that's just not so about the prayer circle there. And also, just for kicks and giggles, anybody who may have in their mind and seeing that there and that being, you know, indigenous land and all that sort of thing, indigenous, you know, a prayer space, you probably think that those masks have been there for generations at least, and that they were, you know, made by the Ramapough or one of the Lenape groups who lived there. Not so. Those were made by an ally, this white man who I think too said in like 1990, 91-ish, he put that up there. But it seems like Two Clouds was the only one who realized that he put him up wrong. I don't know how many people he told this to, because even though he didn't necessarily believe in things that they may have still believed in, because, you know, he has an essay that he wrote, one of his essays that I am actually putting in book form. Well, I put in book form, and will be available for people to buy in the very near future, creator willing. But a lot of the things that they do now, one, are not from their ancestral traditions, and two, were paganistic. You know, as time goes on, if people don't really stick to, you know, closely to what their ancestors actually did, a lot of times a lot of pagan stuff comes into play. And I mean, we even see that in some sects of Islam. And so that was no different with the prayer circle there. And it's funny that the guy that he went up there to Mashpee that weekend to garner support and fighting against without getting too out of hand, that fool, child. It's funny. I'm going to digress a teensy. It's funny because he was, until he was kicked out of position because he was going around town, going everywhere, lying, saying that he was the hereditary chief of the Oklahoma Lenape. You know, he was going around terrorizing, you know, some of the tribes here on the East Coast, saying that they're not truly Indian and all this kind of thing, which is hilarious to me because he has a whole white mother. And the Lenape is a matriarchal society. But he has a white mother. He was raised by white people. It was a Black indigenous person who taught him his history. But, you know, he's going around terrorizing these folks. And again, he came up on the Ramapough land, sneaked up there without telling anyone, and you know, started this trouble. And he's the reason why Two Clouds was actually up at Mashpee that weekend, which he returned from, and he was murdered in less than 24 hours. But he seems to believe that the Missingwe, the Minisink, killed Two Clouds for him, because they know that he's the true, you know, deliverer, or the one, you know what I mean? He's the Neo of the Lenape or something. And I mean, they're trees, y'all. I mean, they couldn't stop themselves from getting cut down. But yeah, so that's that with that. But then the other thing, you know, people might think like, well, he mentioned Two Clouds, why are you not happy? No, I'm not happy, because Two Clouds is not a dynamic member who can just be sort of glazed over and halfway tell a story that he told you, which incidentally, Alessi, like, I don't know. I don't know. He gets thrown off for a minute because he sees this dead raccoon. Like, dude, y'all are in the woods. You think animals go somewhere particular to lay down and die? I don't know. I could be wrong, but it seems to me the owl was kind of thrown off too. Like, yo, why is he tripping over a dead animal in the middle of the woods? But anyway, digression done. But yeah, Two Clouds definitely, again, he could have inserted something more about Two Clouds in that moment. That he wasn't simply a dynamic member, he was a dynamic leader who is the sole reason that we can even be standing here on this land right now, because the HOA don't even want us anywhere near here.
Yeah, this is Ramapough River.
Yeah.
And here is actually a place where it becomes more like a pond. This is an island over here.
Oh,
and I have seen some old maps that say that this used to be a mining pit. That might be why it has the contours it has.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also the old maps indicate that this area also used to be an Indian village.
The old maps, oh.
Yeah, some of the old maps indicate that a village was here. And there's
Let me remind you that the conversation that they are having is fluid, relatively. So we know that they did some editing or whatever, but the conversation at least appears to be very fluid, which means he was just not long ago talking about Two Clouds. So then they come upon the river edge right there, the river's edge, which is exactly where Two Clouds was said to have been taken from. When I looked at the scene photos, his body was there on that grass where they were standing, taken from that water. He talks about an island being nearby. There's also a bridge right there where you can look at all types of photos and video footage, not from me, and see that there is very clearly a bridge right there, which is very open. If you stand on that bridge, as I have already inserted a photo, you can see directly all of that land right there where they claim that Two Clouds was taken from. They tried to say that he had drowned, but there was no fluid in his body at all. None in his stomach, none in his lungs. When people drown, there are different things that happen to the body. So the airway and the trachea is, there's foam coming from the trachea and from the nasal passageway. His trachea, his nasal area was totally clear, and they were just different things. So as I said from day one, I believed that he was murdered elsewhere, which I've already said where I believe that was, and that he was dumped there. Also, we have footage from like a day or maybe 2 days before his body was found. And the boat is there flipped over, but there's no sign of a body anywhere. Some people may say that it was underwater, that it took some days for it to come up. Well, that water is naturally not very high. But every year during that season, the early July season, it is super low. And I showed a photo of how that looks there during that time. But regardless of all of that, another missed opportunity, or untaken, I should say, opportunity to speak about Two Clouds. You were just speaking about him. We're only talking like probably a year before, when they made this video, the summer before. So it didn't dawn on you to say anything about Two Clouds. Again, Two Clouds, who, again, is instrumental in everything that is happening positively, successfully for the Ramapough people since the end of 2016 until now. But no word about Two Clouds. And also, he starts talking about an old world map, about Indian village and everything. Again, I'm going to say, most likely, I'm not going to say 100% for sure, but most likely that information came from Two Clouds, because Two Clouds was the historian. Two Clouds was, the cartographer. Two Clouds was the linguist, the polyglot who understood the languages and such. Not for nothing, and again, I promise you, I'm not saying this from a place of disrespect. It's just factual. The Ramapough people are not, maybe the young people, well, the Ramapough people aren't very much into education. Some of that is because there's so much racism and everything up there for them that, as the chief seemingly proudly says, like, hey, we're victims here, that even up until last year or so, when he did this interview, they have kids dropping out of school in the 8th grade. And I don't know, like, nothing is being done about that. But so that's not one of their strong suits. Not saying this because of them, not saying they're dumb or anything like that, but education is not their thing. So we're talking or reading and stuff like that, and like, delving and going through, antique documents and stuff like that, and maps and all that. It's not what they do. And so Two Clouds, that was his thing, and he would pass information on. And being that Owl used to be around him, of course, he used to tell Owl and anybody who would be around him who were, interested, he would give all this information. It was just his way. So again, yet another missed opportunity.
Us coming together to pray was once considered illegal by the town of Mulwa.
How long ago was that?
Oh, that was a long time ago, like 6 years.
6 years? Okay, dude, what? All right, so what the heck's the deal there? Was that just the neighbors didn't like seeing that? Was that one of those silent kind of mean moves where they just essentially filed the lawsuit, didn't tell you guys, and next thing you know, you had the police knocking, being like, you can't do that, or what?
They were working together at the time, and
the police and the neighbors.
Yes, and that's correct. Once we became visible, because we did have a vigil here 24/7. We had a sacred fire for a month or two, and then we were here just on the land in prayer.
So if we went and knocked on one of those neighbors' doors, they wouldn't be too happy.
Maybe not with a camera.
Owl goes on to talk about that not very long ago, it was illegal for them to congregate for prayer. So many missed opportunities. He talks about that there was a 24-hour vigil and that there was a fire going and everything. All of that was Two Clouds. Again, Two Clouds and Ganaguio, when Ganaguio came down there, which was early on, and he stayed, it was those two. They lived in tents. At one point, they had a really long one where multiple cots could fit in, like, because people would sometimes come down and stay for a few days or a couple of days in the beginning. But then they, ended up moving into a yurt, and they lived there, the two of them, for months and months and months and months. But also, and it was because the town of Mawa was adamant, and the Polo Club HOA, to his point, the HOA and the police are working together, and I will come back to that in a second, pertaining to the murder of my son. But they were working in cahoots with one another. And so Two Clouds and Ganaguio would not leave, because as you saw from one of the other clips that I did, Two Clouds started talking about the Freedom of Religion, Act for indigenous people and things of that sort. It's because they were fighting to be able to congregate as they wanted. There were only a handful of people that they said could congregate. They didn't want them to have a ceremony there. They didn't want them to have, too many people come in. They didn't want them allowing outsiders to come and participate in activities or protests or anything. And they didn't like the fire. And that spirit fire was that fire that he's talking about. It has to go on constantly. It cannot go out. Two Clouds was the fire keeper, which means he couldn't go anywhere. He had to stay there all day long for weeks with this fire, for months with this fire. Yet he is not mentioned, not once. Owl wasn't living down there on the land like that, not at all. The tribal chief was not living down there on the land. None of the Ramapough were living down there on the land like that. They weren't. It was Two Clouds and it was Ganaguio. So all the we is not actual we. It's they. Furthermore, going back into what he said about the polo club, the HOA, and the police being in cahoots. Listen to this. There was no investigation into the death of Two Clouds. Not at all. We were never given a detective. No one ever asked me. No one in my family. No one in the tribe, from what I'm told. No one, none of his friends, not his son's mother, no one from the tribal office, nobody. Not one single question about Two Clouds. And this is with them knowing that he, there used to be shooting at him and such. There is an affidavit on file since I think 2018 where they knew that Two Clouds was being threatened with death and gunshots and things of that nature. This is known. They spoke to no one. There was no notes or anything on file at the police station when I went to collect. There was nothing. Also, there are cameras at the entrance and at the exit of this land. This only is a small narrow. There's a short bridge there also at the entrance there, which is also the exit. It's thin. Only one car can go, or it's narrow. Only one car can go by at a time. There are signs letting everyone know that they are under surveillance 24 hours a day. There are 2 cameras showing people coming in and 2 cameras showing people coming out. On top of that, this is a wealthy, prestigious community. There's like 20-something mansions there. But there was zero investigation done. They didn't look at the cameras of people coming in or out. They didn't ask any questions. There was nothing on the news or anything, no journalists or anything, of this Black Indian leader who has been on the news and in newspapers umpteen times. He has been called upon by all these prestigious universities and all these bigwig peoples, and the mayor knows him, and all these people know him, and Two Clouds when he's alive, but when he's found dead, not a word. And according to the chief, in that fraudulent letter that he sent to the medical examiner, he actually filed a criminal complaint against the guy who came up there threatening the tribe on the very land where Two Clouds was found. The very land where they're having this interview is where the guy came to and made these threats and everything. Made a Facebook Live about it and took it down because he's real scary. He'll say stuff and then take it right down. So you got to catch it. Thankfully, people don't like this guy. So if I don't catch it, they catch it and they send it to me. But so all this is going on and it's super quiet. The chief has never ever called me to see, hey, what's going on with Two Clouds or anything. He's never called me, not once. None of them who call themselves his comrades, the Mohawk or the Ramapough, have called me or checked to see what's going on at all. But and to Owl's point also, they have a good relationship with them now. So why are you not hitting them up saying, hey, do you mind if we allow the police to see the footage? Or there's nothing. When I tell you, my son you wouldn't even know he existed beyond the first week when people were putting up all these RIPs and stuff like that. Beyond that, you wouldn't know anything that Two Clouds ever existed. And again, even when the chief does interviews, or you see Owl doing the interviews and stuff, even though Owl is not speaking on the significance of Two Clouds, this is the very first time in nearly 3 years, since this just went up on YouTube, but in nearly 3 years, that any of them have spoken Two Clouds' name publicly, like at all. And the chief, as you'll see, because I will be putting together another couple of videos focusing on him specifically and his interviews and such, there have been opportunities in the conversations and the interviews where the same thing, Two Clouds, will not exist. And furthermore, let me say that not only did the police not do an investigation, according to their documents, the only report that there is from when they came and got my son's body, they said on there that they looked around. You see how open that place is, right? There's nothing but trees and grass there and water. They said that they looked around, and this is days later, 4 days later. He's been missing for 4 days at that point. They looked around, they didn't see any culprits, so it's no foul play. Really? Even though he's not wearing any shoes and all this kind of thing. And Chief Perry and the other dude, the Wolf Clan sub-chief, who only became sub-clan Wolf Chief after my son was murdered, and who at the funeral was telling everybody that he was the war chief, which was a lie. My son had been elected war chief, not him. And so on and so forth. But with all that being said, you know, them saying that he was drunk and all that, that has been disproven through you know, science. And from me going over the medical examiner's head to the state chief medical examiner, as well as I had a very prestigious forensic scientist who focuses specifically on death by alcohol, or death during, you know, being drunk, or being high by marijuana. That's his focus. That's his expertise. And he has books, booklets, interviews, like he, you know, does peer journals. He has awards, all this sorts of thing. And he also looked at the labs, looked at the facts and everything, and said, no, he was not drunk. But I already knew that because I know what was happening in his day. But with all that, the police decided before they even left that there was no foul play. Now, law enforcement 096 is, if somebody is found in water, then you cannot just come up and say whether it was foul play or if it wasn't foul play. There must be an assessment done before you can make a determination. They did not do that. They determined before they even left the site that there was no foul play and that no investigation needed to be done. This is on the police documentation, and it is also in the 911 transcripts documentation, which incidentally, in the report, it says that two men who worked for the electric company, that they just happened to be on the land doing some work for the polo club, and that they took their lunch break, which must have been like 10 something in the morning, but that they took their lunch break, decided to walk along the land because it's pretty or whatever, and that they smelled something they thought was a goose, and then they stumbled upon his body. Again, we have footage showing that there was nobody there, but also, according to the 911 transcript, because that report says that they called it in, according to the 911 transcript, that's BS. The first call that came in was a long time later, and it was by police, not by some passerby. So who called the police? Who let the police know that Two Clouds was there dead and to come and get him? Who? And I'll remind you that this is their so-called religious land, that they dumped a dead body. And not just a dead body, the body who made it possible for them to even have that land as a so-called religious land. Now, I know some goofy people would say, well, maybe they were trying to make it right by putting them on a religious land. No, they don't give a damn about that land. They don't give a damn about spirituality, religion, ancestors, descendants. They don't care about any of that. They dumped him there because they staged the scene and tried to come up with a lie, and they couldn't even stick to one lie. They kept saying that he was drunk and fell out the boat, and they simultaneously was saying that he had a heart attack and fell out the boat. Both of those things were proven not so by the science. And so they dumped him there because he was always there. Everybody knew that he loved that land. He would just be there by himself because people don't frequent there. And so he would be there by himself. He'd sleep there. He documented this all the time on his social media. And so some Einstein came up with the idea that, oh, let's just say that he fell out the boat and that he drowned. But they forgot that he has a mother who actually does love him, unlike them. And so not only did I go ahead and have the autopsy done and different things that happened, but I had to get the photos of his decomposing body to see my son without eye, without ears, with having his face gone, with all these things wrong with him that a couple of the members had already seen, and started spreading rumors about. There's just a lot going on here, y'all, that these people, again, not all the Ramapough people, but those who are at the helm know what happened and are the cause of what happened. But they are intent on trying their damnedest to forget Two Clouds, but it's just not going to happen. I'll make sure of it.
But again, I mean, we're in a different era now. Back now and even back then, there are neighbors that are friendly. There were neighbors that weren't so friendly, and unfortunately, they tended to be the ones in leadership here. And likewise with the town of Malwa, I mean, we have much better relations now than we did back then. But to be fair to them, a lot of what's going on is, like I said earlier, this is American apartheid.
So he says that now they have a pretty good relationship with the HOA community and even with the town of Malwa, meaning, the powers that be. Why is that? Why is it that after the murder of Two Clouds, now they have a great relationship? Well, he didn't say great. Now they have a good relationship, right? Why is that? Could it be because there's nobody who is going to push back now? Nobody who's going to actually fight for the Ramapough people? Nobody who... There are a lot of the Ramapough who do not trust the tribal chief. There is and there has been on change.org a petition to get signage for the chief to be forced into giving up documentation and such, because they are accusing that he has been stealing money from the tribe and that he has been misappropriating land. Also, all of that fighting that Two Clouds and Ganaguio did, they're on the land for all that time, fighting so they can be able to assemble as they damn well please, and all those things. Chief Perry agreed to a deal with the Polo Club HOA, which walked back a lot of that. So all that struggle, and for what? For what? And now they all coochie crunch. But also, if you now have a good relationship with the neighbors, with the town heads, then why are you still not trying to get an investigation into the death of Two Clouds? I have, for nearly 3 years, been making public a lot of the information that I have. Not all of it, but a lot of it, with documentation. It is obvious Two Clouds did not die by accident. That has been proven again through science, but also through documentation. The New Jersey Chief State Medical Examiner did not change the cause of death from drowning simply because I'm cute or something, which he don't even know I look like anyway. But it wasn't for you have to really prove to them that no, what your guy came up with is dead ass wrong, and here's the evidence. It's not just like, oh, my mother said. No, I had to prove without a shadow of a doubt that the medical examiner who did the autopsy lied on the report, and that it is most likely foul play that murdered my son. I had to prove that. How did I prove it? Through documentation, through concrete evidence, not from myself. So none of these so-called Ramapough cousins who love him so much that make these little, perfunctory little comments on Facebook every now and again about how much they love him, as if he's really on Facebook waiting for the comments of people who won't stand for him. Like, seriously? Here's the facts. I know people love to say, well, maybe they're scared, because there's this going theory that indigenous people are just scary beings who will never fight white people because, like, they're white people and they've done so much. White people have terrorized people of color all across this globe. Facts. My son was scared to be out there in the pitch black woods at night, knowing that somebody could run up on him and cut his throat in his sleep, or shoot him dead while he slept, or did all sorts of things to him. But he stood and he fought for the people regardless. The fact is, all of these pseudo-revolutionaries who claim to be indigenous rights activists and, advocates for missing and murdered indigenous women and missing and murdered indigenous people on a whole, who actually knew my son, who knew him and claimed to be his comrade. Any one of them can get together thousands of people to back them and to help advocate for my son and to help my family fight for justice for Two Clouds. But they won't do it. They won't do it. The Ramapough people, only because of Two Clouds, also can go to any one of these organizations where they get grant money from and all this kind of thing, or these organizations and environmental rights groups that say, hey, we like you, Ramapough. We like what you're doing. We love that you're fighting. Not that Two Clouds fought for you, but we like what we saw happen. And since you're the figurehead, you're the man. He could very easily, at any moment, call upon any of them and say, hey, we need you to help, because you are, a lot of them, because you are an indigenous rights group. And not to mention, he is with the New Jersey, I forget the name of the organization, but it's in North. It's the New Jersey Indian organization that is supposed to speak for indigenous rights of New Jersey state tribes. He works with them. Nothing. So you tell me that I'm crazy. You tell me that they are not intentionally trying to erase Two Clouds and his work and the reason why he is no longer with us. Because I'm not stupid and I'm for sure not crazy. And neither are you.
These citizens end up getting killed, and then we have arguments over whether it was intentional or not. And then people will take sides. Bottom line is, you have certain dynamics on certain squares that you don't seem to have on others.
Yeah.
Like, you don't find George Floyd type situations. The police officer involved shootings in a neighborhood like this.
It's more discreet, is what you're saying. It's subtle.
Subtle, or it's more embedded in the system. I mean.
So I know you heard that. Citizens getting killed, and then they argue about whether it was intentional or not. Is it me, or does it seem like he has somebody in mind? The same somebody who he, again, didn't mention. How many times has it been now that he could have mentioned Two Clouds, but didn't? And why? Why? Because at the time of Two Clouds' death, while he and Owl used to be together in this fight and everything, they didn't have a relationship at the time, because the tribal chief's cousin was placed into a smoke shop that some Mohawk investors really manipulated and forced Two Clouds into working. He didn't want to do it. Initially, he wanted to do it because he saw it as something that would be extremely economically viable for the tribe. But there was so much drama around it, so much drama. He was thoroughly stressed out. He had chronic anxiety from being up there, and chest pains and all kinds of stuff from stress and from anxiety, not from a heart attack. But he had been diagnosed a couple of years or so before as having chronic anxiety. It's actually something that runs in with the males in my family. But so it was so much stress that finally he said, I'm not doing this. I don't want to be bothered. The person that the tribal chief and Owl, from what he told me, placed in the store was, again, the tribal chief's cousin, who has certain addictions and things like that. Two didn't like him. He didn't want to be around him. And he expressed to me many times, as well as friends of his, that he didn't want this guy in the store because he didn't trust him. Aside from him being an addict, he was a terrible person, and he didn't want him around the money. He didn't want to have to manage him. It was just going to be too much. He was supposed to, open a store, let's say, for 8 hours a day. He'd pop up 2 hours late, keep it open for 3 hours, 4 hours, close it. They weren't making any sales, all this kind of stuff. He didn't want to be bothered. But the Mohawk guy, who my son had a lot of respect for, unfortunately, we know now, but he had a lot of respect for, he was adamant, like, no, it has to be you, it has to be you. I don't trust anybody down there, only you. So he finally said, okay, listen, I got this union job, because he went and got himself into the union on his own without any, normally you need somebody to pull you in, the carpenters union or one of those, but he didn't. He just prayed, applied, and he got it. So he told them, I'll help get it off the ground, but that's it, I'm out. So within that time, $33,000 worth of cigarettes went stolen. Two Clouds was thoroughly pissed off with Owl for, I'm not going to go too much into it because I try to be strategic with what I put out, but suffice to say, he knew that Owl knew that the guy did it and all that, but he wouldn't speak up for Two Clouds. So Two was pissed off about it. 4 months before he was actually murdered, it was heated between Two Clouds and Owl, between Two Clouds and the cousin, between Two Clouds and the chief. Pissed off. They'd always want to have like these council meetings, but nothing would come from it. So he'd be pissed off, like, what we keep having these meetings for? Y'all ain't doing nothing. You're not following the Constitution, because Two was always by the book. You're not following the Constitution and handling this situation in a way that it says that thieves should be held accountable for. And so he was pretty pissed off about that. And he was pretty pissed off because the Mohawks were trying to say he had to pay back the money because he was the one that they put in charge. So it's just all this crazy stuff going on or whatever. So suffice to say, Two and Owl were not cool at all at the time. So again, why? Why didn't he not mention him? Why hasn't he mentioned him at all virtually in this entire time, other than saying, you know, oh yeah, this guy named Two Clouds told me this story, or in you know, saying he was a dynamic member or whatever. Why did he not go into details, even if just for 2 minutes out of the entire conversation? Why didn't he go into who this guy is? And I mean, if he's saying that citizens have died and people debate of whether, you know, it was intentional, meaning if it was a murder or if it was not a murder. One, why is nobody saying anything? Why is nobody, if you're afraid to go to the police, come to us? Why? And again, I want to hear none of that scared stuff. So what? So what? Everybody's scared. If Two Clouds was scared and to the point of being immobile or, you know, being afraid to act, they will have nothing of what they have now. They would still be the regular old Jackson White savages, you know, mongrels to people, that they all were still going with this ridiculous, you know, idea of who the Ramapough were before Two Clouds. If he was too scared to do anything for them, they would have nothing. Even that land that they walking on there for this interview, they wouldn't have. They wouldn't have anything. So you can tell yourselves, in my mind, only cowards can even make some sort of idea like that make sense. But, you know, if you can tell yourself that, but nah. This is the exact type of no snitching attitude that has, you know, Black and brown communities all over the place going down, 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 because nobody want to speak. Nobody want to talk to the cops. Nobody want to take another route if there is another viable or another route that makes sense and where they could get some information out there to, you know, to make things happen. They don't want to do it. Like, I don't care about all that I'm scared crap. Like, whatever. If it wasn't for Two Clouds, their descendants wouldn't have a damn thing. And that's for true. He even fought to, there's a Ramapough College, again, no affiliation to the tribe, but Ramapough College has a an educational scholarship, 4-year scholarship, specifically for the Ramapough, that it's not with the government, it's not from the government. So an individual actually implemented that, but nobody was using it. I think like maybe one person before Two Clouds used it. Two Clouds had to fight tooth and nail to get that reinstated, and they weren't trying to do it until the son of the man who did it, I think he was like the dean or the president or something of Ramapough College, was like, let him in. That's what my father made it for. Let him in. And so he got in, and, you know, they were accusing him even then of, you only came up here to get schooling. Y'all ain't thinking about no damn school, first of all. Secondly, anybody can go to school for free. There's grants all over the place. But that's not why he did it. He did it to reopen the scholarship, but also to impress upon the Ramapough youth that, hey, I could do it. I came from Newark. You could do it too. And he was great at his work. Not only was he great at his work, at his educational, his academic work, but as I said earlier, he also served as a consultant to them there at the college. And he was actually he was about to go back to finish up. He was a junior. He took off in order to do the work for the Ramapough and to like make money for himself. But he was about to go back to school to finish up his degree, and they were already looking to put him in place as a I forget what they call it, but like as a second in a classroom to the professor, an assistant professor. And not only that, when he started the school, there was a history professor there who had in her curriculum very racist stereotypes about the Ramapough people, saying that they were Jackson Whites and that they were not actually indigenous people. he got her fired. And she was a tenured professor. So you tell me that somebody being scared is sufficient enough reason to sit on their asses and not try to do something for someone who did everything for them. In fact, gave his life, because to the very end, he was fighting for them. That's why he was murdered, because he was fighting for the Ramapough people. So you tell me that it's okay to just sit on your ass and be scared. No. No.
But, I think in their minds, maybe what happened was, these black and red devils all of a sudden show up, and like, how did they get into heaven?
Have they stated that? Have they called you the black and red devils?
They didn't have to say it. That's how they treated us.
That's how they treated you.
In other words, as long as they didn't see us, because we always had people coming back and forth. As long as we were maintaining, as long as we were virtually invisible, we tolerated. But once we became visible, that's when some of the people lost their minds.
And that's when the confrontations they wouldn't come up to you guys and be like, you need to stop doing that. Maybe a few.
Sometimes they would.
They would.
Some of them would, yeah.
And they would just come to you and tell you to stop? How would that go?
Fortunately, it tended in those points to just be verbal, but we did hear gunshots on the land.
You heard gunshots?
Yeah.
So they were threatening you to leave?
Yeah, again, to be historically accurate, and you're making a record here as well. Two Clouds, Murad Williams, was the one that really was the person here that was taking care of the land. I was here a lot of the time. Yeah, Chief Perry opened up the space, but Two Clouds was the one that was on the forefront in dealing with a lot of what was going on.
Yeah.
So I heard some, but he said that it was that it wasn't uncommon to hear that from time to time. And there, also there was one time where one of our members, the Two Clouds, were here like we have been for hundreds of years, and they were just on the land, and there was like a laser beam that came at them. And that was someone put a laser on, and that could mean.
Oh, like they put like a green laser, or like they put like maybe like a gun sights laser?
Gun sights laser.
Geez, so they were trying to threaten you off the land is what you were saying. And then if that didn't work?
I can't say it was them that did this, but there were people that did not want us there doing what we're doing.
Got it. And then on top of that, you mentioned off camera how they federally tried to charge you $10,000 a day. There was a legal dispute there saying that you can't be on this land?
It was a town. And it was for, like I said earlier, it was for the prayer circle, the stone altar, and even coming together to pray.
Yeah.
But again, we're in a different place now. We're seeking to work with our neighbors, with the town, and so we're not in that phase of the conflict now. But again, what that illuminated to me was, what it brought home to me is we got to be honest with ourselves. We live in American apartheid right now, and it isn't any coincidence that some of the most polluted land, some of the hardest land to live on, is lands that are allocated to black and red and brown people.
Finally, it's about 3 minutes before the end of the video, but he did mention Two Clouds and a few of the things that he endured, and not just him, but again, Ganaguio. For sure, they used to shoot at him, lasers. He could be sleeping in a tent or something, and he would hear sometimes sound like somebody is walking around outside the tent, or the yurt. They would throw their dog feces over the fence at them. They would call them like niggers and all this kind of stuff. One lady who was and her husband, who were like big terrorists in this situation, her husband died of a brain aneurysm, and they tried to say that Two Clouds put a spell on him and made him die. So of course that didn't get off the ground because it's cuckoo. Like all these things were happening to Two Clouds, And again, you know, he did mention that he was the one at the forefront. Again, he didn't say anything about him being found dead there or anything like that. But I will restate, even though I'm not happy with that, but I will state that again, Owl is the only one who has spoken his name publicly and said anything good about him, or just, again, said anything about him at all. So I will give him that, but I still will not give him the fact that he did not say anything about him being dead or the fact that it's a possible murder or anything. These are the times where we have to take advantage and speak up for the people. We have to. If we're worth our so-called indigenous love's weight in salt, open your mouth. Stop being scared. People are always talking about their ancestors, but be trying hard as hell not to meet with them again. And always talking about the creator, but trying hard as hell not to meet with the creator. Like, seriously, how goofy is that?
So then, what's the solution? How do you get along with the neighbors, and how can the tribe live among the neighbors?
That was our prayer. That was our prayer. Let's start with what we really all need, which is the good water, and the good air, and the good food.
Yeah.
So we start there. Let's make sure that we all, regardless of where we live or who we are or what color we are, let's make sure that we all get good water.
So, you know, he sums up this video with saying that what we all really need is, you know, good air, good water and everything. And of course, I agree with that. We for sure need that. However, what we also need is to stand up in solidarity and protect our protectors. How can we dare ask people, especially our youth, to stand up, be courageous, be strong like these, you know, supernatural superheroes we all think we have in our lineage, to stand up and be strong like them and to fight for the people, to protect us, to make things the way they used to be? How can we ask them to stand and do these things and put it all on the line, put their lives on the line? And then when something happens and they fall, we're moms, well, I'm scared to talk. Ooh. How? How disgusting is that? And it should not matter whether the culprit is an indigenous person or a non-indigenous person. Like, do we really think that all these missing and murdered women and, you know, indigenous people are being harmed and murdered only by non-indigenous people? Like, give me a break. Like, come on. The people who are closest in your proximity are the ones who often do the dirt to you. So we constantly, what is it? See, it sounds real cute to call somebody a water protector or a fire keeper, or the people who do this work. It's no mean feat. It's serious. And it comes with all sorts of risks. It's not romantic. It's not. I can tell you from being with my son for so many years while he did his work, and him calling on me as a confidant and, you know, as a comrade, and us talking and him having to come home because of things that was happening and stuff like that. I know firsthand, and I know even more now because I picked up the baton the day as soon as we buried him at the funeral, at the cemetery. I picked up the baton and kept it moving for him. So I know some of the stuff that he was going through firsthand. And even more so because he would try to, you know, be more diplomatic. I don't give a damn about none of them. Nobody. Truth is truth. I have nobody to answer to so far as some sort of hierarchy. And so that's what it is. But I think that people, it's not out of cockiness or anything like that. Is my faith is with my creator. I will speak the truth, nothing more. And then whatever happens, happens from there, whether people take to it and not take to it, whatever the case is. And I think that that is the way that people need to be if you are claiming to stand and fight for the masses. There's no space for cowardice in revolution. It's not. That's how I was taught. That's how I taught Two Clouds. That is the way that he was the way he was. And so when he stepped out and did what no other Ramapough member nor chief has ever been able to do, and the way it's looking, probably won't ever do again, unless I'm banking on the youth, the next generation and the ones after that, maybe the next 2 or 3 generations. I'm thinking that they're going to be the ones. Those are the people that I'm actually making these videos for, not y'all, because I already know most of you not going to do nothing anyway. Either be pissed off that I'm saying the things that I say, or write the things I write, or share the things that I share, going to be peed off, or it's the ones who think it's like cute and, ooh, that's so Indian, and keep it moving. But the ones who are going to walk in the footsteps of Two Clouds and those like him, not going to be the people here today. It's not. But there always has to be a foundation, like my friend Turtle Gang was talking about before in the interview I did with him. And I'll link that too. But that is always about the foundation. We're building foundations right now. It's going to be the future people who are going to set this shit off. But in the interim, we have to be able to stand up for the people who are willing to stand. We can't just sit in the corner being scared, hiding behind trees and all that. You know, we can't. Talking about some damn squirrels or, you know, energies and burning sage and powwows and all that stuff only. They all have their place, but it's not the place. Those things will not save you. You have to do the work on your own. That's just the way Creator works. And how are we going to go before our ancestors, meet our ancestors when the time comes, and they be like, oh, so what you do? Like, I set this up for you. Did you take the baton? Did you move on? And we're just like, well, no, we were like praying to you and you ain't come through. Like, how disrespectful is that? Everything that our ancestors went through to ensure that we could be here, you know, hashtag still here. We're still here because of them. So now we're just going to sit on our asses and do nothing? Scared? Asking them to give more, give. What are we going to do? They did work. We think we're supposed to just be sitting around collecting? We have to be those superheroes that, again, we like to tell ourselves are in our lineage. Don't you want your descendants to be able to say that you are a superhero and be accurate? So that's my review, my reaction to that video. I will be back with another one. Peace.